Not used to.
Hello, Freedom. Thank you so much for talking with me today and taking the time out of your yard work schedule, your outdoor schedule. Thank you.
It is such a pleasure to be here with you. I am so grateful. Beyond Soul Spa. It's a wonderful thing. Yes, I was working in my vegetable garden and working on a
Mhm.
stone wall and doing a lot of physical things. So this is a wonderful antidote to that. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank
Um,
you. So
and
would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My birth name is Hope Ives Mauran, and I'm an author and I have written 5 books, the most recent of which is Love's New Earth, the book that we are here to talk about. Yay. I call myself a translator of wisdom from other dimensions. Um, Ever since 1998, when I learned to channel and I realized that I was an artist after a channeled reading told me those things. Prior to that, I had no clue of it. And I live in Vermont. I'm a mother. I'm um, connected to nature and the land and the earth, and very, very concerned and eager to share the message of Love's New Earth, which is a really well-timed book right now on Earth because, as I'm sure you all know, we are at a choice point and a transition. So I feel like I've come to Earth for this time to write this book. And so it's really exciting to be able to share it with you, Jody, on this platform.
Yes, thank you. I mean, it was very serendipitous, divine that we met that day. We met at Fare Thee Well in Massachusetts, and we had a circle of sharing. And you were talking about channeling and your new book and the ideas. And I'm across the room listening, going, I should really put my chin back up because it just resonated. And then you said, Here, would you like to read one of my books? You weren't selling it or pitching or, some of those icky kind of feelings that you get, the marketing kind of stuff. You were just really excited about sharing this information. And it would be nice if you paid your bills and did all of those things with it too at the same time, right? But your energy was pure and just really nice. So you
Well,
want to
that was,
share the messages of the book, but there are so many in here. So which one would you like to start with?
oh my gosh. Well, start in the beginning. Um, the beginning shares about how we exist in a field of love. And all of my books have started with a miracle of some sort. And when I was told probably a year and a half ago that I had a book to write, I thought, okay, well, what's this one about? And I received a booklet, which a sort of a poem, which I turned into a booklet. It was a dark and stormy night on planet Earth, and the people
Yeah.
said, no more, no more of this charade of government, of education, of medicine, and the new world began. And so the booklet, goes into um, the message that essentially the book offers. And the book is called Love's New Earth, Awakening to Our Collective True Nature as Love. And when I asked what the miracle would be when I was going to start the book, I was given this quote, which it really is a miracle. It starts out the book. Love is the healing force within and around all life. It is here right now. Feel it. And one of my guides is Jesus, and that's from him. Um, and so the first chapter is about this field of love and how it's a protective field, a healing field, a corrective field. It's a communication field. There's so much interaction that is going on all around us all the time. And there's nothing we have to do to participate in it. We are part of it. We simply are. There's no getting out of it. And so acknowledging it, noticing it, um, and empowering it to help us have more synchronicities and miracles in our lives is one of the benefits of being aware of it as a field of love that's all around us. I share a few stories, some of which are around the Lightfield founder Mark Newkirk and his son Ross. And
That was a beautiful story.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So that's a great way to begin. So many of us have synchronicities and miracles in our lives, and we don't have any sort of logical explanation of how they could possibly occur.
Mhm.
But the book goes on to explain how, with through the study of Vedanta, I've become more aware of how we are consciousness itself. We are not these bodies. And so we are unbroken consciousness everywhere, all the time, eternal. And yet we exist in these bodies as well. And so understanding this massive identity that we hold and the power that can come with identifying with that is one of the graces of understanding Vedanta, which is a means of knowledge for understanding who we are. Um, One of the conundrums is that
Mhm.
when we realize ourselves as consciousness, consciousness is everywhere, it's everything, it's all the time. And so there's nothing outside of us we could put our finger on as consciousness. We see it everywhere in everything. And so the opportunity we have is to just stand in that knowledge and that understanding. And I share some of that in, I think it's the second chapter of the book.
So you obviously have gone through several years of learning about consciousness before you started channeling, before you really had this connect. So connect with your guides. I'm saying, it took me several years to connecting to get to this point. How do you explain consciousness and field of love to someone who is just starting? Like, saying all you have to do is like connect. And I have this conversation with lots of people a lot of the time, and they don't know how to start believing that we are not small. What do you say? We are not small and powerless. Now I get it. Now I
Hmm.
get it. Um, my my advice is to show people that ask, how did I do it? To release a lot of the traumas, to let go of the traumas in the way that I learned. That's all I know. So that's what I teach them, is how I did that. But I don't think that until we release those things that we can really believe. Or am I getting it backwards? Tell me what you think.
Well, one of the things that Vedanta really set me straight on is we don't have to do anything to be consciousness itself. We are it already. These bodies are inert and consciousness animates them. And it's true for everyone, whether they are spiritual or completely, oriented to just the physical world. And what I like to remember for myself is there's nothing I need to do to be more consciousness. And so whether or not I choose to know it in this moment, it matters. It doesn't matter a whit. It's helpful at this transition point in time to stand in our power as consciousness and use the laws of creation, for example, move away from fear and those kinds of things. But we are eternal. We are always consciousness itself. We are unborn, we are whole. And so if one is interested, one can find a, a, a place to grab onto that, I believe. I don't think that releasing all our traumas and becoming a more pure being and not hating and not having anger and all those sort of things that often a spiritual journey
Mm.
m- brings us through the maze of. We are already and always it. You know, the near death experiences where people drop their bodies, they have a life review and those kind of things. That is very compelling, very well documented, and would, if anybody were to uh, have doubts about there being more to this world, I think looking up some of those and hearing those stories, which
Yeah.
transform people's lives completely.
Yeah.
I just watched one yesterday that Carolyn Mace put out an interview, and this woman who had died, her life was entirely transformed. And we have that opportunity in understanding ourselves as something beyond the body, which is so important now because our bodies are under attack in so many ways, just in, you know, keeping ourselves alive, you know, making enough money, getting our food and all these things, as well as all these influences and pollutions and
Mhm.
medicalizations that are being put forth for
All of it.
human. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm really coming to understand or to realize this consciousness, and maybe that I've had it backwards, or maybe it is different for different people, that some people need to shed those energetic blocks and stuff before they can receive. But also there's another way, and that is to, well, I do quantum healing hypnosis technique. And so those people go to source during their session, and they don't have to die to get that feeling and meet source, and get them. So without having a session, without having an NDE, without doing trauma work or trauma release, really having somebody there showing you and explaining in a way that you are might be
Mhm.
enough. So thank
Yeah,
you for changing my whole mindset on that.
yeah, because
Yeah.
that old peeling the onion thing, you are perennially, there's always something more to shed at this physical level. Always something more to move beyond or let go
Yeah.
of. When in fact, this is all simply the metaphor that's used in Vedanta is this is the movie on the screen. The the projector and what is going on the screen never touches the screen
Yeah.
itself. That white big square surface that any movie is shown on is who we are when we have projected upon us all these identities and personalities and our individuality, our mortal, litness, our separation from everything around us. None of that is actually who we are and our truest self. And so it's
Yeah.
really exciting to have this template and this understanding that I received from Vedanta. There's a teacher named James Schwartz. He's one of the teachers that I've studied with that is a wonderful sort of entry point for learning more about this, if that feels of interest to any of your listeners. His
Okay.
website is
James.
shiningworld.com.
Yeah, because you have quite an extensive bibliography here, an index,
Hmm.
and lots of resources here. And one of them, of course, that um, is Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, yeah, he started
Robert F.
the Children's Health Defense,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is a wonderful organization. You know, back in the 60s, there were, I think, 7 vaccines that children had as a matter of course, and now it's up to like 70. two or something like that recommended. And
Really?
yeah, and in a recent documentary on him, he mentioned how now it's 1 in 35 children has autism, when in the past it was 1 in thousands. And in the documentary, he I think part of the reason is the mercury that is um, the delivery means
Right.
for some of these uh, vaccinations for children.
Yeah.
Um,
And for
but
us, it's in all of them, right?
well, it's a good thing if you're entertaining that kind of thing to find the insert and do some research on what's in whatever, you know, injection you're planning to get, because being informed about these things is your job. You shouldn't be relying on your doctor, your government, or anybody else to be telling you what's appropriate to put in your body. You might want to do your own research and look at the actual insert that comes with the material that's going to be put in your body, because
Right. Well, that's
you're
another paradigm shift for me too. Upside down is, what do you mean I have to do my own research? I've been saying for, I was going to say years, but really decades. I was a nurse in a long-term care
uh,
facility for decades.
mhm.
And when people would say, well, they're the doctor, I'm going to listen to the doctor, or then the nursing home is telling me to do this, the long-term care is telling me, I was like, okay, you can do what they say, but a lot of times it's motivated by profit margins these days in a way that it wasn't before. So if it were my loved one, this is how I would do it. That was brand new. And people were like, a lot of times didn't listen to me, which I understand, but more people are coming to understand that now.
Mhm.
What kind of feedback are you getting when you say that to people? Read the
Um,
label.
well, I haven't had the chance to say it to too many people. Um, uh, one of the things that's rather compelling, and that I have put in the book, is about how the structure of a corporation, many of the corporations are running the elder care homes and things like that. And so, as you said, profits are important. Investors and boards are this sort of, a corporation is run to make money and bring their stockholders um, investments and values higher. And it's never, or it's not, to increase the value of um, upgrade a
Wellness.
certain wellness, or to work toward uplifting humanity. Um, so
It's
just
just
realize.
not on the radar at all.
Right, and it's built into the structure of a corporation. And so it's really important to realize that, a corporation does not necessarily have your best interest at its core and reason for being. And as corporations are in charge of more and more aspects of our lives, and we are participating with them for our food, for our water, for our shelter, for our energy, for our transportation, we need to realize this and realize that we have handed off our security, our our security to these corporations, which perhaps don't feel as strongly as we do about our safety and our well-being and our positive future. And we talk a little bit about that in the middle of the book as well.
Yeah, you cover so much in here. Your spiritual awakening, your messages, your previous books. Like I said, the bibliography, the index, and all of the resources here, the Hopi uh, vision, or the Hopi prophecy. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got is it the 2030 Tell me again. I'm looking, but
Agenda 2030.
Agenda 2030.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. But I want to, before we dive totally into that, I wanted to talk about the FDA and the recent decision that they settled a court case that the doctors had against them, against the FDA's Instagram or Twitter post that said, "You are not cows, you are not horses," about the ivermectin, and it is not safe. So this group of doctors and the ACLU, I think, sued them, and they just settled and had to take all of those down and said, well, it's a couple of years in the past anyway. So when I was listening to you, I was thinking, well, the first response I get a lot of times when I start talking about government and our security and how it is such a paradigm shift that when we talk to people that aren't ready to hear it, they just turn us off, right?
Yeah.
And that goes to the divide that we have in this country. But that was last month that happened, that the FDA settled. And it's just, we're not hearing about it at all. So just want to throw that in there.
Yeah.
It was a biggie. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember hearing that ivermectin costs 17 cents a dose and was very effective early on in the pandemic for treating the symptoms that people were experiencing.
Right.
And so to have that information now, hopefully, people will hear about it and realize, as more and more of these things coming to light. There's that other one about how the Dr. Fauci had said that 6 feet apart is what we all had to remain in order to be safe. There was no science behind that. And it's like the foundation stones for this entire shutdown scenario are
so
being
bizarre.
eroded and tumbling away.
But it's always after the effect. And they know that it's already done. It's after. They don't have to come clean. No one's paying attention to this except for a couple of people in these grassroots effect, as they would right when it was happening. And I remember back in the beginning of this, reading the news and watching on like European news and stuff, and watching Italy. And of course, I have my background in nursing. I'm watching Italy struggle with this, and it hadn't come. I'm like, it's coming. Like, there's no way it's not coming here. It didn't occur to me that it might not be as dangerous, but that wasn't, I just thought, oh my God, it's coming. So we'd have to be ready. And it was very clear that it was airborne. And the countries that had already experienced it were definitely treating it like a flu and the way we should. But instead, first of all, we weren't notified in any way. This is what's happening in the world. We might want to, there was nothing. We were given what I consider to be busy work to make us feel as if it's very much like an abusive situation where they say, well, you'll be safe from me as long as you do what I say, right? That's what abusers do, right? So large scale gaslighting is, yes, this is very scary. This is very dangerous. But if you just stay inside your house and wash down all your groceries and don't touch your face, do you remember that? Like, we don't need anything. And not even 2 months later, we had the passports come out and everybody was mandated.
Yeah.
How did that happen so fast? It was just, all of it was bizarre. And I'm making masks in my living room with HEPA vacuum cleaner filters and taking my kids out of school, and the teachers are mad at me. And 2 days later, the school shut down. It's just so wild.
Yeah, there's a series of documentaries called
Yeah.
Plandemic 1, 2, and 3. And those are really helpful for understanding that this was planned in advance. The first Plandemic movie shares about how there was, um, I can't remember what it was called, but prior to 2019,
Mhm.
or earlier in 2019, there was a pandemic exercise. And down to the last announcer's detail and announcement of shortages and these kinds of things, there it was all planned ahead of time. And so what happened as it was unfolding in the spring of 2020 was simply the rollout of that plan that had been created prior to that. And
So
so
was that a world plan or a US plan?
that was a world plan. As far
Yeah.
as I know, yes. In the book, I share about it, how it was sponsored, who it was sponsored by and such. But it was
Can I guess?
rather amazing to realize that it had all happened in advance and it was planned and rolled out in that way. And so all the things that appeared to be just sort of shooting from the hip and we're all figuring this out together,
Come together as a
actually,
team. We've heard that before.
right, we were being manipulated in a very clear way. Um, um, Matthias Desmond I share in my book about mass formation. It's a way of creating an entire population's perspective on something so that you can control an entire population, and that has been used on all of us.
Well, it
By
sounds
many
very
people.
conspiracy theory. Okay. Sounds very conspiracy theory. And so a lot of people, I'm sure, have shut this off by now. But I am going to say that if I think back to my childhood and my uncle, who was always like, pharmaceutical companies and doctors, they're in on it, they're da, 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 and people poo pooed him and poo pooed. Well, guess what? Fast forward 30 years later,
Yeah.
we know that this is true. When
Mhm,
you're talking about this was planned, this is a rollout now.
mhm,
The same thing has happened in 2001 when we all came together as a country and supported New York.
mhm.
A lot of people don't know that there was a practice attack scheduled on that day. So it confused the skies. Is this attack? Is this real? Like it's very, very bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there
So
are huge numbers of detonation specialists who have asked for more of the materials to be disclosed. Um, and
they cleaned it up really fast.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I was never interested in any of that because I didn't think any of it could be proven. But when the evidence and the questions and the hidden documents and these kinds of things pile up and pile up and pile up, and you see the reasoning behind it, why it's desirable to control the human family, why it's desirable to you know make sure the population is filled with fear, these kinds of
Yeah.
things. It's it
Yeah.
it puts the causality in your face. And if there's a cause and a desire to control the population, the means by which it is done can be more easily seen. And there is definitely a plan that is in place. I mentioned previously Agenda 2030. Um, it's called the Great
That was
Reset.
shocking to read. A verified, so these are all verified sources. These are not left or
Yeah,
right.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
a number of documentaries in the book. In the back, there's a list of documentaries for people to look at if they want to find out more about this. And the documentaries are a very neutral way to find out about it. It's not alarmist, it's simply information and facts that helps you think, oh wow, maybe there is another side to this that I have been unaware of. There's a series, the Plandemic series, as well as Thrive 1 and Thrive 2, which are sort of basic documentaries that can help bring people up to speed if they're interested in this kind of thing. And I would encourage people to look into it, because this is a terrifically important time on Earth. What we choose as a human family right now will determine what kind of world our children and grandchildren and the next 7 generations live in. And so we have got to step up and, you know, tune into our own inner guidance, find stillness in our lives, and really withdraw our attention from the media and the outer world to a certain degree in order to know how to navigate these very, very tricky times. Because there is a split that is occurring, and this old world of control and a new opportunity to create a world based in love and cooperation and kindness and community and compassion. These are all what is happening, because one of the things I haven't mentioned yet is that the Earth's frequency is rising, which is supporting our creation of a new possibility on Earth, an Earth based in love and harmony and connection to nature and respect for all life. And this is a kind of world that I think probably we want to live in contrast to this world of coercion and being told by a central authority what to do, how to live, what to eat, what to put into our bodies. These two alternative realities are right here, right now. And actually, the cover of the book share, you know, that's bottom is the sort of the old world of control, and the new world is, you know,
And that
bright
is
and
your artwork,
shining. And that is my
right?
artwork. Yes.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's a modification of it. Yeah. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, it's such an important time to be paying attention and educating ourselves, because we could end up living in smart cities where everything we do is regulated, where there's a central bank digital currency, and where we have only the capacity to buy things if our transaction is approved and if we are within 20 minutes of our home. I mean, there's crazy things that you'd think, oh, that can't possibly happen. Well, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but 10,
They're playing the
15,
long-term
20
game.
years. Yes, and this is
Yeah.
a long-term game. This has been going on for, I would say, millennia. And so um, it's not a this decade kind of thing. This has been going on
Mhm.
for a very long time, and it's very choreographed and planned. And so we need to wake up and pay attention.
So why now? Why now? You say it's a critical time, but it's been going on for a long time. So why now?
Well,
Just
this is
because it is now, there is nothing but here and now, or because now the frequency is rising and
no, this is very much. I think it was all meant to happen in 2012 and in 2021,
mm,
and it keeps being pushed off because so many of humans are waking up and realizing that they are powerful, they are able to create, they have the capacity to navigate their own lives without being told from the outside what to do. And this time on Earth, we are also ending a vast cycle of time. We are leaving something called Kali Yuga. The Yuga cycles are 25,920 years long or so.
yeah.
And Kali Yuga is a very sort of negative and dense um, period of time that we are leaving. And so we are entering a period of time where humanity has more capacity, more ability, is lighter and more loving and has greater potential. And the book speaks about that a little bit in the overview. And so realizing that we have wind behind us, pushing us toward a more positive future. As the Earth's frequency is rising, we have this potential that is so exciting. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if you used to follow the Mayan calendar that ended in 2012, but the step function of the Mayan pyramid and the expansion of consciousness as we got higher and higher and higher upon it, we are in this culminating time, and I don't really understand it fully, but there's enough marker points in my own um, research and referencing the Kali Yuga cycle, or the Yuga cycle, the Schumann resonance, the Mayan calendar, and these kinds of things. It's a really exciting time, and so we have all come for this time. I mean, this is the finale of this Broadway play that this, wonderful world has been for us in the last, you know, millennia. And so we have an opportunity now that each of us has a role to play. If you came, you've always wanted to do something and you never quite had the courage. Now is the time to do it, because you have no time to waste. I put out this book um, in a very important timing. It came out right as the eclipse happened on Earth, and I felt like there was a really important transition in that time, and in this past April of 2024. And so we have this opportunity to fulfill our roles, to do what we came to do. And one thing that nobody ever told me early on was that whenever you start something, you really don't necessarily feel up to the task. You probably don't feel like you have all the skills, the understanding, the knowledge to do what it is you want to do. But one of the things that I uh, realize in writing books is the minute you sort of set your intention and start walking in that direction, the universe is giving you people, information, ideas, quotes, little clips of things to include. And
Strewing your path with what you need. You just have to
right,
step into it, or
right,
be
yeah,
willing. Pray for the willingness.
right. And it's a process. And so that creation of whatever it is you have come to do is yours to do. And the other piece is we need to do it so that the people who rely on our having done it are in a position to do what they came to do. So many of the
That's right.
quotes and documentaries have made possible my pulling it all together in a way to provide a resource for a reader to understand both the global agenda of 2030, as well as who we are as consciousness and the field of love and the laws of creation. To pull all these things together, I
Yeah.
have gathered from many sources of people who have stepped up and done their work. And nobody expects us to be perfect. Nobody's expecting us to know everything. But together we are so powerful, and there is so much opportunity now for us to create a new world based in love and cooperation and kindness, where children are valued and taught to learn to think and to connect to themselves, and all sorts of beautiful things that are so important right now.
Are you familiar with Dolores Cannon's work?
You
A
know,
little.
so many people mentioned her name, and I really haven't done a deep dive into her work. I have
I
um
think for you, it's going to be like kind of old news, really. But um, there are different waves, she said, of volunteers. And so the first wave has come and gone. We are on the second wave. And then the
mhm,
third wave are the people coming, the kids coming in now.
yeah.
And are you seeing, I mean, I don't know how much you're on social media, but I'm still on social media because of my presence there and really interested in the spiritual stuff. And there are kids who are remembering Atlantis, Lemuria, telling their parents what God is and how God loves, and like Yeah, I'm just getting chills that it's so beautiful. And Dolores was a pioneer in the
Yeah.
60s doing
Mhm.
this stuff, tapping in.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and so many people are standing upon her shoulders right now. She's passed on, I understand, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's
She's come
so
into several of my sessions though. And
oh, cool.
yeah, very,
Yeah,
very
the
cool.
the new young children, that is so encouraging because many of the second wave, they're getting kind of tired of this. It's been a long slog. But there's
Yeah.
so many people waking up now, and there's such an opportunity and such support for waking up right now. That's another piece that I realize in sharing my book is we have the motivation to wake up now. You know, if there is a government coming on board that has the capacity to say you can't leave your house, um, what kind of future is that for our children and our own self-authority and our own
Right.
ability to understand how to navigate our life and create our world. So it's such an opportunity now.
Yeah.
Um,
You know what's interesting though, when I'm thinking about that time period, that cocoon that we all had, going back to that, I wouldn't give that cocoon period away at all. Like, but now I'm able to look back on it in a different way and see both sides. Like, what a gift that was for so many who were awakened in that time. At the same time, in hindsight, we can look and say, I didn't have a choice. I'm glad I didn't have a choice at the time because it woke me up spiritually. And
mm,
but now it's putting together a lot more pieces
yeah,
in
I
a way
remember.
that they never thought.
Right. Early on, we were told
Yeah,
it was going to be for 30 days, or I don't know what it was. And I thought, oh gosh, I hope this doesn't end soon because it's doing
yeah,
so much good work for people. And
yeah, yeah,
just sort of the layers of um, freneticness dropping away and people having time to communicate and have
yeah,
meals with their family.
yeah,
Um, it was a very healing time as well as a sobering
yeah,
uh, fear time for, you know, because there was so much
yeah.
fear
I
that
think
was behind doing it.
sobering is a great word for it. What I experienced, and I don't know about in Vermont. Were you in Vermont at the time?
Well, I was in Connecticut during the initial shutdown in northwestern Connecticut in a rural community. Uh,
Rural. Okay. So during that time, I was actually homeless for a
oh,
period of time. Yeah. Uh, Me and two of my children, older children. And remember, everyone was, I forget what they called them, but people had their safe pods that they could hang out with, right? And
yeah.
it was sobering to me to find out who wouldn't let me and my children in,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
you know? And people were using, oh, well, we can't because it's too dangerous or whatever. And they used it as a sword and a shield. So I'm like, I'm going to do that too. When people started getting back together, I was like really enjoying, I can't say enjoying, it was very difficult for me, but my nervous system needed that quiet. And it
Mhm.
was that built in
Right.
get out of a socializing
Right.
thing as we needed it, you
Right.
know? And
Well, it
sorry,
makes
go
you
ahead.
realize how fear is used and is such an important thing to be able to master ourselves because there's so much fear, you know, if it's not that, it's this, and if it's not this, it's that, and that. And the media is master of, um, you know, if you become relaxed for a moment, they'll happily give you the next thing to be fearful of. And so one of the skills that we as a human family need to be able to develop is the capacity to become still and to allow the fear to dissipate, to feel it in our bodies, just become completely still Notice where the fear is. Don't identify with it. Don't latch onto it. Don't be convinced about the story that it comes carrying, but just allow it to be there and note that it's there and say, hello, hello. You have nothing, you know, that I need to hold on to, and allow yourself that time, because we have all the guidance we need. We have our spirit guides, our higher self, our source connection, our infinite spark, whatever you want to call it. We have it already all the time. And so our opportunity is to realize that and turn inward for our guidance as we navigate this maze that the world has become, and these fearful events that are populating the world around us. How am I going to handle this? What am I going to do if my bank shuts down and I can't, get any of my money? Don't run around. Ask, sit still, be in nature, become your own guide and teacher. Not to say you don't get information from the world, but qualify it, run it through the filter of your own higher knowing.
Right. And access your higher self somehow. Like just that alone is hugely rewarding, to be able to access your higher self. And I see a lot of people interested in that.
Right.
Um, I've never, for two conspiracy theorists here talking, we certainly don't have a lot of fear. So
Well, there's
is this like,
moments where it takes over. You'll hear something and it'll just trigger some old piece of wounding, or something from your childhood, and it's hard. There's times where I'm anxious just because, we're all connected to everybody. And there's times where there's greater anxiousness in the world, and there's times where there's greater ease. And we're all sort of processing it for both ourselves and for the collective. And so we have this opportunity right now to look fear straight in the eye and say, hello, you don't have control of me. You have a role to play, perhaps, but you're going to just sit here, and I'm going to pay attention to what my own guidance is and my own self authority. And, you
my
can,
garden
right.
in your garden, right? Yeah. It just feels very much like once you get to the point of trusting yourself, there is no going back to the other way.
Yeah. Yeah.
There
That's
really
one of
isn't.
the things. Yeah. You said you wanted me to share how I learned to channel all those years ago.
Would
I,
love
I
to.
had a channeled reading, and she said I was an artist, I was psychic, and I could channel. And so I thought, oh my God, that's the coolest thing ever. And so within a couple of months, and she taught me how to do it. She said, sit down and just become quiet with a pen and paper and say inwardly or out loud, whatever you want, is there anything I need to know right now? And write down whatever you get, even though it feels like, you and such. And so you do that on a daily basis. And after a while, you'll get, first a word, then a sentence, then a paragraph. And then for me, I got a whole page. And then I got at the end of the page, ask me a question. And I said, well, who
Yes.
are you? And I received, I am your guide and teacher. And so we were then off to the races of having an inner conversation anytime, anywhere, asking any kind of questions. And it transformed my life in a way. I realized I was never alone. There was so much to know and understand and participate in. And we all are hardwired internally to be in communication with our guides. And so, if you have this sort of inkling of something you ought to do that's perhaps maybe challenging, maybe expansive, maybe pushing your envelope in a good way, give it a try. Perhaps that's a message from your higher self stretching the boundaries of where you've had your little white picket fence of your comfort zone. Now is a time for moving outside of our comfort zones for sure. And we're being forced out. So we might as well just hop over that fence and see what's out there, because this is the time for us to really be expanding our world and expanding our capacities,
Mm.
creating what we do want, and creating a new kind of reality to participate in this world.
That's so beautiful. And when you talk about stepping out of your comfort zone and just reaching or asking a little bit, just try it a little bit. The universe is guiding us and helping us.
Mm.
It is shockingly um, common for joy to not be our stable, safe space, right? Why are we experiencing fear and we're used to that? Why
Mm.
isn't it joy? And in so many of my sessions, I keep talking about the sessions, but they're so transformative for
Mhm.
me and the people, and talking about or exactly what you're saying, I'm seeing in the sessions and people's higher selves or Dolores Cannon or whoever wants to come in and talk to that soul. When they say, what is my purpose? They say,
Mm.
what do you love? What
Right,
brings you joy?
right.
And so stepping out of your comfort zone,
Mhm.
yes, it means joy, as
Right,
backwards as that is.
right. Yeah, one of my books, The Key to Love, talks about whatever you can do and override your hunger pangs because you're so engaged with it and so excited by it. That's something that you are here to do.
Yeah, and
Create.
then that increases the frequency,
Mm-hmm.
your individual frequency,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps everyone. Go ahead, I want to hear you
Yes.
though.
Yeah. Now we exist in a field of love, so how we are influences everything and everyone. And so
Mm.
holding our frequency and being in our joyful place and cultivating our capacity to enjoy life, is a beautiful way to do our work in the world. I remember years ago, I went and learned with a kahuna in Hawaii, Kahu Abraham Kauai, and I asked him how to help somebody else. And he lifted up a napkin at the table by the center of it, and he said, just uplift yourself, and everyone who's on the fringe of your life, the fringe of your napkins metaphorically, will be uplifted by your upliftment. And that's our opportunity and the choice we need to make right now. And there's also one thing I want to say in terms of channeling. There are technologies now that infiltrate our thoughts, so our thoughts are really not our own anymore. Perhaps they never were, I don't know. And so it's really important to be discerning and to be channeling in a high frequency state. And if you're hearing things in your head or thoughts are coming to your mind, sometimes I get the worst, nastiest thoughts. And I simply say, no, that's not my thought. And so keep that phrase handy. No, that's not my thought. Don't get sucked into some message that is dark or self-destructive or encouraging
Mm.
things that are not in the highest and best good of all concerned.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Thank you for saying that, because it is true that
Mhm.
when you're channeling, you don't know, you can't prove, who you're talking to, or any person here can lie to you about who they are, what they're doing, a con man or whatever. Same in the spirit world. And to be discerning is, listen, anything that doesn't make you feel good. I get messages a lot about preparation, what we need to prepare for changes in the earth. Um, I'm never afraid for them with them. I don't know how that is. Do you get messages about the future timeline of Earth? And
Yeah, I try not to go there too much, but I do follow my impulses. Sometimes I'm kind of hardwired by my I'm
Hardwired.
hardwired with
Okay.
my guides and my, my source, as we all are. And there's no need to have sort of an actual conversation with our higher self, because it's part of who we are already, always, all the time. And so when I find myself at the grocery store, buying a few extra things for my cupboard in case there's an emergency, or a bottle of water, or a little bit more of this or that, I just go with it. I don't add a big storyline about it, but I do try and become more and more self responsible, which means having food and water, and a way of having energy, a generator or something like that, so that we are not relying on centralized, controlled corporations who maybe during a catastrophe or weather event aren't able to take care of us. So we need to get back to taking care of ourselves. Um, and it's not an easy job. I completely understand that, but little by little, making that sort of a touch point, as we go through life. If we have a choice to make, will this make me uh, more in control of my life, or will this give away my power to a central authority? My friend bought a business, and she transferred the calendar to this centralized computerized calendar. And so she had no idea who was going to be coming in for sessions, because it was all unavailable at that time. And
Interesting.
so
Okay.
the centralized calendar is a beautiful thing until it doesn't work, or until you don't have access to it. I'm not on social media, and I have a paper calendar, a landline, and those kind of things. So I try and hold on to my own self authority in those little ways,
Mhm.
which, maybe that's my age and stage of life. And when when we can completely trust, centralized authority as having our highest and best good, um, that would be a beautiful thing. But I don't think that is the situation right now.
Mm. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. This was amazing. And you don't have social media. So where can people buy this book?
I have a website, freedomsart.com or lovesnewearth.com.
Okay.
It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, it's on Balboa Press bookstore,
Wonderful.
and
Okay.
it's at a couple of bookstores uh, in Vermont, Bear Pond and Galaxy Bookstore. So that's where you can find me. Thank
Wonderful. Wonderful.
thank you, Jody.
Thank you so much. I learned so much from this book. It's going to be a reference, kind of, I think, too, even though I flew through it in a couple of days. It's one that
Yeah,
I want to keep. Yeah.
yeah,
And I've got a couple here too, by the way, if people want to, in Holyoke
right.
to see them.
Excellent. Yeah, it has the Rays of Hope and Reasons to Prevail listing, which is 82 organizations and people and places where sort of the new earth is being created or supported, or this transition time is being helped along.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Jody. It's a joy.
My pleasure. I appreciate you too.
Yeah.